Hello and welcome to The English Globe, your go-to podcast for mastering the English language. I'm Adam.
And I'm Julia. We're thrilled to have you join us today as we explore the fascinating world of English learning.
That's right, Julia. Here at The English Globe, we aim to provide you with the best tips, tricks, and strategies to help you become fluent in English. Today's episode is particularly exciting as we're diving into a topic that many of our listeners are eager to master: how to speak like a native speaker.
Yes, speaking like a native speaker is a common goal for many English learners. It not only helps with clear communication, but also boosts confidence and opens up more opportunities for social and professional interactions.
Absolutely, Julia. Today, we're going to break down the elements that make up native-like speech. We'll cover everything from pronunciation and intonation to vocabulary and idioms. But we're not doing this alone.
No, we're not. We have a special guest with us today who is an expert in the field of language learning. Michael has been teaching English for over 20 years and has helped thousands of students improve their speaking skills. He's well versed in the nuances of native speech and has a wealth of knowledge to share with us.
Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you, Adam and Julia. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're delighted to have you, Michael. Before we dive into today's topic, could you tell our listeners a little about your background and your journey in the field of language learning?
Of course, I've been passionate about languages since I was a child. I started my career teaching English in various countries, which gave me a unique perspective on the challenges learners face when trying to speak like native speakers. Over the years, I've developed techniques and strategies to help students overcome these challenges. Currently, I work as a language consultant and run workshops and online courses focused on speaking skills and pronunciation.
That's impressive, Michael. Your experience is exactly what our listeners need to hear about. Speaking like a native speaker can seem like a daunting task, but with the right guidance and practice, it's definitely achievable.
Absolutely. Michael, let's start with the basics. Why do you think it's important for English learners to aim for native-like speech?
Great question, Julia. Speaking like a native speaker has several benefits. Firstly, it improves clarity and reduces misunderstandings, which is crucial in both personal and professional settings. Secondly, it boosts the speaker's confidence, making them more willing to engage in conversations. Lastly, it helps in building stronger connections, as native speakers often feel more comfortable when they can understand you clearly and feel that you've made an effort to learn their language well.
Those are compelling reasons, Michael. It's clear that striving for native-like speech can make a significant difference in a learner's overall language proficiency.
Indeed. Throughout today's episode, we'll delve into specific techniques and exercises that our listeners can use to improve their speaking skills. We'll also discuss common challenges and how to overcome them.
And remember, listeners, we're here to support you every step of the way. If you have any questions during the episode, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be answering some of your pre-submitted questions later in the show as well.
Yes, and don't forget to check out the show notes for additional resources and links to helpful tools. Now, let's get started on our journey to speaking like a native speaker.
Michael, to kick things off, could you share some initial thoughts on the key aspects that make up native-like speech?
Sure, Adam. The key aspects include pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, vocabulary, and the use of idiomatic expressions. Each of these elements plays a crucial role in how natural and fluent you sound when speaking English.
That sounds like a great roadmap for today's discussion. Let's dive in, starting with pronunciation.
Stay tuned, everyone, as we explore these elements in detail with Michael. You're listening to the English Globe. Today, we're discussing how to speak like a native speaker with our special guest, language expert, Michael. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of pronunciation and vocabulary, let's talk about why this goal is so important. Michael, can you share with us why sounding like a native speaker is beneficial?
Absolutely, Adam. The benefits of speaking like a native speaker are multifaceted. First and foremost, it enhances your ability to communicate effectively. When you speak clearly and use natural speech patterns, your chances of being misunderstood decrease significantly. This is especially crucial in professional settings where clear communication is key.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember when I first moved to the UK for my studies. Even though I had a good grasp of English, my accent and intonation were noticeably different. I realized that people would sometimes have to ask me to repeat myself, and it made me a bit self-conscious.
That's a common experience, Julia. It's not just about the words you use, but how you use them. Sounding more like a native speaker can reduce those moments of miscommunication and help you blend in more naturally.
I've had a similar experience when I traveled to the US for work. Even though I was fluent in English, my pronunciation of certain words gave away that I wasn't from there. It made me feel a bit like an outsider at times. Once I started adopting more native-like speech patterns, I noticed a big difference in how people responded to me.
Exactly. This leads to another significant benefit: social acceptance and integration. When you speak like a native, it can make social interaction smoother and more comfortable. People are generally more at ease and open when they hear familiar speech patterns. It shows that you've made an effort to understand and respect their way of speaking, which can foster deeper connections.
That's so true. I found that once I started adopting more British idioms and expressions, I felt more included in conversations. It was as if speaking the local way helped bridge cultural gaps.
There's definitely a psychological aspect to it as well. When you speak like a native, it can boost your confidence immensely. You feel more capable and competent, which in turn encourages you to engage in more conversations and take on new opportunities. This confidence can have a positive ripple effect in many areas of your life.
Confidence is key, especially in professional settings. In my experience, being able to present ideas and communicate effectively in meetings has been crucial. When you sound more like a native speaker, your professionalism is often perceived more positively.
Yes, in the workplace, sounding like a native can enhance your credibility and professionalism. It can be the difference between being seen as proficient versus being seen as an expert. This can open doors to career advancements, networking opportunities, and even leadership roles.
It's interesting how something as subtle as intonation or rhythm can make such a big difference. Michael, from your experience, what are some of the most noticeable advantages that learners have experienced once they've started speaking more like natives?
One of the most noticeable advantages is the ease of forming personal connections. Students often report that they feel more comfortable initiating conversations and participating in group activities. They also find that they're better understood, which reduces frustration and makes interactions more enjoyable. Another advantage is the ability to catch subtle nuances in conversations, such as jokes or cultural references, which are often missed when one doesn't speak like a native.
Catching those subtle nuances can make a big difference in social interactions. It can help you connect on a deeper level with native speakers. Catching those subtle nuances can make a big difference in social interactions. It can help you connect on a deeper level with native speakers.
And understanding cultural references and humour can really make you feel like part of the community. It's those small things that can make a big difference in feeling at home in a new environment.
Exactly. It's about creating a sense of belonging and making your communication as seamless as possible. The more you sound like a native, the more natural and effortless your interactions will become.
Thank you, Michael. This has been a great overview of the importance of speaking like a native. It's clear that there are many benefits, both practical and psychological, that can enhance our communication and overall experience with the language.
Absolutely. Up next, we'll dive into specific tips and strategies for achieving native-like speech. Stay with us as we continue this insightful discussion with Michael.
We're diving deep into how to speak like a native speaker with our expert guest, Michael. Now that we've covered the importance of sounding like a native, let's get into some actionable tips and strategies. Michael, let's start with pronunciation. What are some key tips you can share?
Thanks, Adam. Pronunciation is one of the most crucial aspects of sounding like a native speaker. One key tip is to focus on the individual sounds of the language. English has several sounds that might not exist in other languages, so it's important to practice these regularly. Common challenges include the th sound in words like think and thee, and the distinction between short and long vowel sounds, such as in ship versus sheep.
That's great advice, Michael. I've found that breaking down words into their individual sounds and practicing them can be really helpful. One exercise I use is recording myself saying a list of challenging words, then comparing my pronunciation to a native speaker's.
Another exercise I've found useful is minimal pair practice. This involves pairs of words that differ by only one sound, like bit and beat. Practicing these pairs can help you hear and produce the differences more clearly.
Those are excellent exercises, Adam and Julia. Additionally, using phonetic resources like the International Phonetic Alphabet, IPA, can help learners understand and practice the correct sounds. Moving on to intonation and rhythm, these are equally important as pronunciation in sounding natural.
Michael, how do native speakers use intonation and rhythm in their speech?
Native speakers use intonation to convey meaning and emotion. For example, a rising intonation at the end of a sentence can indicate a question, while a falling intonation can signal the end of a statement. Rhythm, on the other hand, involves the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables in a sentence. English is a stress-timed language, which means that the rhythm depends on the stress pattern rather than the syllable count.
That's fascinating. I've noticed that paying attention to the intonation in native speakers' speech can really help in understanding their emotional nuances. One technique I use is to mimic the intonation patterns I hear in movies or TV shows.
That's a great technique, Adam. Another effective method is to use speech shadowing. This involves listening to a short segment of native speech and then repeating it exactly as you heard it, focusing on both intonation and rhythm. This helps in internalizing the natural speech patterns.
Let's talk about vocabulary and idioms next. Michael, why is it important to use native-level vocabulary and idioms?
Using native-level vocabulary and idioms is crucial because it makes your speech more authentic and relatable. Idioms in particular add color to your language and help you sound more like a native speaker. They also provide insight into cultural nuances, which can enhance your understanding of the language and its speakers.
That's true. I remember when I first started using idioms in my speech, it made a noticeable difference in how native speakers responded to me. Some commonly used idioms include break the ice, to initiate conversation in a social setting, piece of cake, something that is very easy and hit the nail on the head to describe exactly what is causing a situation or problem.
Those are great examples, Julia. Michael, do you have any strategies for learning and incorporating idioms into everyday speech?
Yes, one effective strategy is to learn idioms in context. This means understanding the situations in which they are used and practicing them in similar contexts. Another strategy is to create flashcards with the idiom on one side and its meaning and example sentence on the other. Regularly reviewing these cards can help solidify your understanding and usage of idioms.
Finally, let's discuss the role of active listening and imitation. Michael, how important is this practice?
Active listening and imitation are critical for developing native-like speech. Listening to native speakers helps you understand the nuances of pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, and vocabulary usage. Imitation, on the other hand, allows you to practice and internalize these elements.
I agree. I often use media like movies, podcasts, and even YouTube videos to immerse myself in native speech. Watching with subtitles can help too, as it allows you to match the written words with their pronunciation.
That's an excellent approach, Adam. Another tip is to engage with different types of media to expose yourself to various accents and speaking styles. This not only improves your listening skills, but also helps you adapt to different speech patterns.
And don't forget about the power of repetition. Listening to and repeating the same phrases multiple times can help you get a feel for the natural flow of the language.
Absolutely. Consistent practice is key. The more you listen and imitate, the more natural your speech will become.
Thank you, Michael, for these invaluable tips and strategies. We hope our listeners find them as useful as we have. Up next, we'll be answering some of your pre-submitted questions. Stay tuned. In this segment, we'll be focusing on practical exercises that you can use to improve your English speaking skills and sound more like a native speaker. To start, we're going to do a short role play to demonstrate practical usage. Julia and I will act out a common scenario, and then Michael will analyze our conversation and provide feedback.
Sounds great, Adam. Let's imagine we're at a coffee shop and you're ordering a coffee. Ready?
Ready.
Good morning. What can I get for you today?
Good morning. I'd like a large cappuccino, please.
Sure thing. Would you like any flavor syrup with that?
Yes, please. Can I have a shot of vanilla?
Of course. Anything else?
No, that'll be all. Thanks.
All right. That'll be $4.50. Please step to the side and we'll have it ready for you shortly.
Thank you. All right, Michael, what did you think?
Great job, Adam and Julia. That was a good example of a typical everyday interaction. Adam, your pronunciation was clear, and you used polite language appropriately. One small suggestion is to vary your intonation slightly to make your speech sound more natural. For example, when saying good morning, you can use a rising intonation to make it sound more friendly and engaging. Julia, your responses were spot on, maintaining a natural flow of conversation.
Thanks, Michael. Role-playing is such a useful exercise. It allows you to practice real-life scenarios in a controlled environment.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to the shadowing technique. Julia, could you explain how this works?
Sure, Adam. The shadowing technique involves listening to a short segment of native speech and then repeating it exactly as you heard it, focusing on mimicking the pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm. It's a great way to improve your speaking skills because it forces you to pay close attention to how native speakers talk.
That sounds like a fantastic way to practice. Do you have an audio clip prepared for us to demonstrate?
Yes, I do. I've chosen a short clip from a movie. Let's listen to it first, and then I'll demonstrate how to shadow it. All right, now I'll repeat the dialogue, trying to match the pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm as closely as possible.
Great job, Julia. That was an excellent example of shadowing. You captured the intonation and rhythm very well. For our listeners, it's important to choose audio clips that are not too fast or too complex when you're starting out. Gradually, you can move on to more challenging materials as you become more comfortable with the technique.
That was impressive, Julia. I can see how this technique can be really beneficial. Michael, do you have any additional tips for our listeners on how to effectively use the shadowing technique?
Yes, Adam. One important tip is to break down the audio clip into smaller segments if it feels too overwhelming. Start with just a few seconds of speech, shadow it until you feel comfortable, and then move on to the next segment. Also, try to practice shadowing regularly, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. Consistency is key to seeing improvement.
That's great advice, Michael. I've found that incorporating shadowing into my daily routine has really helped me improve my fluency and confidence in speaking.
We hope our listeners find these practical exercises helpful. Remember, the key to improvement is consistent practice. Try incorporating role-playing and shadowing into your daily language routine, and you'll start to notice a difference in your speaking skills.
Absolutely. These exercises are powerful tools that can significantly enhance your ability to speak like a native. Keep practicing, stay patient, and enjoy the process of learning.
Thank you, Michael, for your valuable insights and feedback. Up next, we'll be answering some of your pre-submitted questions, so stay tuned.
We've had a fantastic discussion so far on how to speak like a native speaker with our guest, Michael. Now, it's time to answer some of your pre-submitted questions. We've received some great ones, and we're excited to dive into them. Michael, are you ready?
Absolutely, Adam. Let's get started.
Our first question comes from Sarah in Canada. She asks, I struggle with the sound in English. Do you have any tips for mastering this sound?
Great question, Sarah. The sound can indeed be challenging. One effective technique is to start by placing your tongue between your teeth and blowing air out gently. Practice with words like think and this. It's important to practice slowly at first and then gradually increase your speed as you become more comfortable. Using a mirror can also help you monitor your tongue placement.
Thanks, Michael. Our next question is from Raj in India. He asks, how can I improve my intonation when speaking English?
Raj, improving intonation involves paying attention to the rise and fall of your voice. A useful exercise is to listen to native speakers and try to mimic their speech patterns. You can also use sentence stress exercises, where you emphasize different words in a sentence to change the meaning. For example, I didn't say he stole the money can have different meanings depending on which word is stressed.
Those are excellent tips, Michael. Here's another question from Maria in Spain. She asks, what are some common idioms I should learn to sound more like a native speaker?
Maria, learning idioms is a fantastic way to sound more natural. Some common ones include break the ice, to initiate conversation, under the weather, feeling sick, and hit the nail on the head, to be exactly right. Try to learn idioms in context and practice using them in sentences to better understand their meanings and usage.
Great advice, Michael. Our last question is from Ahmed in Egypt. He asks, what role does listening play in speaking like a native, and how can I improve my listening skills?
Listening plays a crucial role in speaking like a native. It helps you understand pronunciation, intonation, and the natural flow of speech. To improve your listening skills, immerse yourself in English as much as possible. Listen to podcasts, watch movies and TV shows, and engage with native speakers. Also, try to practice active listening by focusing on the details of what you hear and repeating them.
Thank you, Michael, for answering these questions. It's clear that our listeners have some great queries about speaking like a native speaker. Now let's move on to our final segment, resources and tools for language learners.
Yes. Let's talk about some of the best resources available to help our listeners improve their English speaking skills. Julia, do you have any recommendations?
Absolutely. One resource I highly recommend is the website BBC Learning English. It offers a variety of free lessons, videos, and exercises that cover everything from grammar to pronunciation. Another great resource is the app Duolingo, which provides interactive exercises to help you practice and improve your language skills daily.
Those are excellent recommendations, Julia. I'd also like to add a few of my favorites. For those looking to improve their pronunciation, the app Ielts Speak is fantastic. It uses AI to provide feedback on your pronunciation. Additionally, English Club is a great website that offers a wealth of resources, including pronunciation guides and practice exercises.
Those are some fantastic tools, Michael. I've also found the book English Grammar in Use by Raymond Murphy to be incredibly helpful. It's a comprehensive resource that covers a wide range of grammar topics and provides plenty of practice exercises.
Another useful tool is the Anki app, which uses spaced repetition to help you learn and remember vocabulary and idioms effectively. It's particularly useful for mastering new words and phrases.
Yes, Anki is a powerful tool for language learners. I also recommend watching TED Talks. They cover a wide range of topics and feature native speakers from various English-speaking countries, which can help you get used to different accents and speaking styles.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing your insights and resources. We hope our listeners find these recommendations helpful. That brings us to the end of today's episode.
We've covered a lot of ground, from understanding the importance of speaking like a native to practical exercises and useful resources. Remember, consistent practice is key, and don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way.
Absolutely. Learning to speak like a native takes time and effort, but with dedication and the right strategies, you can achieve your goals. Keep practicing and stay motivated.
Thank you again, Michael, for joining us and sharing your expertise. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you have any more questions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out to us.
Don't forget to subscribe to the English Globe, leave a review, and follow us on social media for more tips and updates. Until next time, keep practicing and have fun with your language learning journey.
As we wrap up today's episode, let's recap the key points we've discussed about speaking like a native speaker.
We started by exploring the importance of sounding like a native speaker, highlighting how it can enhance communication, boost confidence, and help with social integration. Michael shared some invaluable tips on pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm, emphasizing the need to focus on individual sounds and the patterns of native speech.
We also delved into vocabulary and idioms, underscoring the importance of using native-level expressions to sound more authentic. Julia shared some commonly used idioms, and Michael provided strategies for learning and incorporating them into everyday conversations.
For practical exercises, we demonstrated a role-playing scenario and discussed the shadowing technique. These exercises are designed to help you practice real-life interactions and mimic native speakers to improve your speaking skills.
And in our Q&A session, Michael addressed common queries about speaking like a native, offering tips on pronunciation, intonation, idioms, and listening skills. We also recommended a variety of resources and tools to help you on your language learning journey.
Michael, before we go, do you have any final thoughts on language learning for our listeners?
Absolutely. Language learning is a journey that requires patience, persistence, and practice. It's important to stay motivated and enjoy the process. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're a natural part of learning. Use the resources available to you. Immerse yourself in the language as much as possible and practice regularly. Remember, progress might be slow at times, but every small step forward is a step in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your insights and for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Yes, thank you, Michael. And a big thank you to our listeners for tuning in and for your great questions.
Thank you, Adam and Julia. It's been a pleasure to be here and share my knowledge with your audience. I hope everyone found the discussion helpful and inspiring.
Absolutely. And before we go, we're excited to tease the topic for our next episode. We'll be discussing overcoming language learning plateaus, where we'll explore strategies to push past those frustrating periods when progress seems to stall.
That's right. We'll be sharing tips on how to stay motivated, set realistic goals, and find new ways to challenge yourself. So, be sure to tune in for that.
Thank you again for listening to The English Globe. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social media for more tips and updates.
Until next time, keep practicing and enjoy your language learning journey.